Hey, if I'm on Facebook or something, Twitter, I am waiting for it to come on there we go, YouTube. There we go. All right, welcome to the podcast. This is Michael Patton. Let me start that again. Welcome to the podcast. This is Michael Patton, and we have got a show with just me this time. I know we've been having Tad a lot with conversations with Tad, but I wanted to do a show about worthless decisions that we make. I guess this is more of a sermon. By the way, welcome. It's great to have you wherever you're coming to us from. I know we go at a lot of places, and I'm going to turn on the comments here so that you who are watching this live can make comments, and hopefully I will remember to look over at them. So wherever you're at, they will come into this one spot and I will get them. Doesn't matter whether you're on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, those places, or whichever channel you're on each one of those, because I got multiple channels that we're broadcasting to. But I want to talk about worthless decisions we make. And I think about this a lot because I've made a lot of worthless decisions. I've made decisions that are just so incredibly stupid. There's a lot of things you probably have the same type of thing. If you could go back in time and do some things differently, you probably know exactly where you would go. I mean, I know exactly where I go. There's two probably main ones. I mean, I can think about it more. There's a thousand of them that I would love to go back and redo. Things that started sometime whenever you gave up something that was valuable for something that really ended up worthless. I would go back to whenever I was 14 years old, had my first cigarette with my friend Jason. Thanks a lot, Jason. Out on his back porch. I remember that very distinctly, and I wish I could go back and not do that. That started something. I wish I could go back and, well, there's a lot of things I can talk about, but have you ever seen the show? I think you could learn a lot about human nature on the show Let's Make a Deal. I mean, I do like watching that. I don't know if it's on anymore, but I used to love watching that because you would just sit there and gawk. That's the only word I can think of is gawk, because you're in amazement at the decisions that people make, the things that they trade, and that what gets in our mind, the greed, the change, the exchange that will happen. And Let's Make a Deal, if you've ever seen it, what you get is it's a game show. They call on you and somehow you get some type of prize. Maybe it is $1,000. And then the guy comes up to you and he says, I've got 3 doors here up on stage and I'll trade you that $1,000 for one of these doors. And people are always like, they can't help it. People can't help but trade whatever it is they have in hopes that something better will come along. And I think that's sometimes what we do. I remember this is the main one I think of. I wish I could go back and change. And that's I was driving down the road, and this is right when, and I'm sorry I always talk about this. It's probably overdone for me, but it is a big part of my history now. But I remember whenever I was driving down the road and I had the opioid pills from my pain pills. And I remember thinking to myself, and this was a very distinct thing. I mean, this was something that was not just me. This was not something just casual. I remember very much thinking, if I take these and I'm not in pain, that's whenever I was starting to do it, take it whenever I wasn't in pain anymore, just take it to get back to zero or to feel the effects of the opioids and turn into the conversationalist, because that's what I do every time I got on the opioids. I could talk to anybody. I was a better version of myself, at least I thought. And so I was driving down the road and I knew that it was wrong. I knew I shouldn't. And I knew that this was some kind of fork in the road. And I thought to myself, if I do this, I'm making a choice and it's significant because, I don't have to. I'm at a point where I don't have to take this. Yes, it's tempting. I don't, but I can go down the right path. And I remember very much in my mind, and this was 2000 and I don't know, a 10 or 2011. And I remember very much in my mind thinking, I'm taking the opioids and I'm going to get in trouble for this. I know it. And it was kind of like me and the Lord there. And I was kind of casually doing it, saying, I know I'm going to get in trouble, but right now I can't help it. I want to take the sin instead of doing what's right. I want to have, I don't want to be bored by doing what is right. I want to have fun by doing what is wrong. And I know it's a short, I know it's not going to last. And I know it may betray me, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. What a dumb decision. I mean, human nature to trade whatever. And most of the time, whenever well, let's make a deal. They just keep on trading and trading until finally you have nothing. I played this game with my kids, the same type thing. We called it Moneyball. And what I would do is I'd say, all right, whoever catches this ball gets $5. And I'd throw the ball up in the air and everybody would run for it and grab it and catch it. And then I would always trick them. I would throw it up in the air, and while it was in the air, I would call out, what they were going to trade for. So if it was $5, they had $5, and I'd tell them all what they have. And a lot of times I would give them a bankrupt, and that they couldn't help but catch the ball because they're so excited. The inclination at the very beginning is to go after whatever is more. And that's how I'd end up not ever paying them, because I would call bankrupt right at the very end whenever I know they're intent on taking it. So I didn't have to pay them, but the whatever I wanted to. One time I remember my kid got up to like $200 and then went bankrupt. I got a little bit nervous there, but of course, human nature, we always do that. We can't help but want more. We can't help but not be satisfied with where we are at. Contentment is a big part of it, I think. But it's just sin. I mean, whenever we want to sin, whenever there's that deep down desire within us, it draws us and it overwhelms us. And you, as well as me, know the sin nature. That's what the Bible talks about. That's what the Bible calls it. We all have a sin nature. We are born infected with this not just a tendency but overwhelming urge to trade that which is valuable for that which is worthless. And you've all done it. We've all done it. We are born, and through sin is talked about. You've heard this before, probably, but sin is talked about in three ways. You've got sin. Sin means missing the mark of God's righteousness, falling short of God's righteousness. We think of it as just doing what's wrong. That's okay. That's a way to think of it. It's something wrong in the eyes of God. That's what sin is. And so we don't want to do what's wrong in the eyes of God, because he's the one who created us. He knows best for us. And so why would we want to go against what our creator has in store for us by choosing something that he says is not good for us? That's where it all started. That's whenever we were in the garden, and Adam and Eve got tempted by a fruit, and they had on this door, behind this door, life with God, fellowship with God, and all that God has created them for the future. And in this door, they've got what Satan tempted them with, this apple. You will be wise, and you will be as wise as God. So take this apple, don't believe him. It's the desire that we have. We're always trading things. That's what happens at sin. We've got sin nature. We are born with it. There's three types of sin. There's imputed sin, and I believe we have imputed sin. Imputed sin basically means that we are born guilty because we are born in and with the Adamic race, Adam's race, the first Adam. We are until we come into the second Adam, Christ, until we find ourselves underneath his umbrella of righteousness, we are in the family of the first Adam. We are his children. We were there with him in the garden whenever he took that apple and ate it, and so therefore we are related to him. This is imputed sin. We are held guilty because the entire human race is held guilty for that sin. So everybody's born separated from God. That's our problem. That's why we have to be born again. Born means to be reunited with, to die, which God said in the garden, the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. To Adam and Eve, they didn't die physically, they died spiritually, and death is always separation. It's separation of the soul from the body. It's, we have this saying, whenever you say to somebody, you're dead to me, you're saying our relationship has separated. And at that point, Adam and Eve's relationship died with God. They were separated from God. That's the first sin. That is called imputed sin. You and I are born separated from God. Next, we talk about personal sin. These are the sins that we just do ourselves that have no relation to anything else in a theological sense. We make bad choices, and that is part of who we are. Everybody makes bad choices. Everybody sins. 1 John chapter 1, the person who says he has no sin is a liar. Okay, if you say you have no sin, you're a liar. That song, I'm not a sinner, I've never sinned, I got a friend named Jesus, sorry, that's a lie. That's not true. Bad lyrics. Good song though. But then there's another type of sin. This is called inherited sin. So we got imputed. We're born with a gavel struck against us, and then we've got personal sin. These are the sins that we do, but inherited sin is the infection that came from Adam and Eve. It comes through our parents, and it came to them through their parents. It's in our spiritual DNA. Part of our spiritual DNA has this infection we are born with, this drive we are born with to sin. We have a drive to give up the things of God, the eternal things, the things that matter for things that are worthless. And we make these choices all the time. And maybe you've made that choice recently. I mean, we'll talk about that, but just know you're in good company. We have all done it. But I want to look at an illustration. I think it's the best illustration in the Bible about this issue, about trading down rather than trading up. And this is in Genesis chapter 25. I'm going to bring this up here on another screen, so those of you who are watching this can read along with me. But this is in Genesis chapter 25. This is about the birth of Jacob and Esau. They were twins in the womb of their mother, and that's where we pick up the story, is whenever they are in the womb of their mother in Genesis chapter 25. Now, look at this. It says, two nations, God's talking to their mother, two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. So the reason why I read that is because God is promising that one will be blessed and one won't be blessed in the same way. Okay, that's important because we're talking about the line of Abraham, and we're talking about the birthright that they receive from Abraham. You see, the entire Bible is made up of God's promises to people, and it stretches across the entirety of the Old Testament and then is fulfilled in the New Testament. We're still waiting for the new covenant, the new promise, but this was one of the first promises. This is probably the biggest promise in the Old Testament, and we call it the Abrahamic covenant. Abraham was promised over and over and over again. Genesis chapter 12, Genesis chapter 15, Genesis chapter 17, Genesis chapter 20, that he was going to be a blessing to the earth, that he would have a child, that from his line, from the line of Abraham, God promised, I will bring about somebody that will save the world. That's basically what the promise is. But he's also telling him, you will have a mighty nation that comes from this line. And that's what's at stake right now, is this line, the line of Christ, the line of redemption, to be in that line. It's a great blessing. And so right now in this, what's happening is God is telling them one of them will be in that line and one of them won't. So it quickly moves ahead. It says, when her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first one came out red all over his body like a hairy cloak, and she named him Esau. Afterwards, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she was born to them. When she bore them, excuse me. Now, where did you jump ahead? So they were born, and then all of a sudden they're grown up. When the boys grew up, And why it's interesting to me the stories that the Bible does include if you're going through it, how quickly it moves. And in these types of cases, you know that something really important is coming up because we don't hear anything about these boys from birth all the way until this point. They're probably in their 20s. But it says the boys grew up. Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. Now, listen to the distinction that's being made about these boys so far. One of them first came out all hairy, the other one didn't. Now we have one that's a outdoorsman and one that stays indoors, is kind of, more of a cosmopolitan type guy. He is quiet and, keeps himself clean. Esau is dirty and he's outside in the field all the time. He smells one way and Jacob smells another. So here's what we have. Isaac loved Esau. Isaac, his father, loved the hunter because he ate of his game. But Rebekah loved Jacob. Now notice these distinctions, choices that are being made here. These are all very important for this story. Isaac loved Esau. Why? Why does it tell us that? And then why does it tell us that he loved Esau? Because he ate of his game. Notice here the idea of making choices based upon our inner passions. Choices that are important. Which child do you love the most? And they're making choices based upon this. Based upon eating, what they ate. I love food, therefore I love this child more. This child can cook, therefore I choose him. That's the thing that's set up. Now, this is the main part of the story. You can almost set that aside. I just wanted to show you that because it's so foreshadowing of what's getting ready to happen. But it says here, once Jacob was in cooking stew, Esau came in from the field and he was exhausted. Now this really says he was famished. I mean, he was just out of it. He came in, he's been out in the field for a long time. He's been hunting and he comes in and he's starving. He hasn't caught anything. He hasn't shot anything. His bow and arrow is missing. His slingshot is missing. Whatever it is, he did not catch anything. And here's old Jacob, the trickster, the one who came out holding his brother's heel. He came out and he's cooking stew. Okay, so now the thing is in this, you got to understand this. It has the word stew here, and I'm reading from the English Standard Version, but I want to draw your attention to that. He was cooking stew, okay? And Esau was out. He comes in. He's famished, and Esau said to Jacob, "Let me have some of that red stew." I don't like that translation. It's not really a good translation. It doesn't work well for the story. I think it's very unfortunate that they have it as red stew, because what he says, he doesn't say the word for stew there. He comes in and he says, let me have some of that red stuff. So just a description, red stuff. What is stuff? Stuff just is anything, I mean, this is something that he comes in and he does not know what this is. Esau looks over there and he sees him cooking something, and all he cares about is getting a bite of that. And he doesn't know anything else about it, but that it's red and that it's stuff. Those are the two qualifiers for this that Esau is looking at. That red stuff right there. Give me some of that red stuff because I'm exhausted. Therefore, his name is called Edom. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. Well, look at this. I mean, look at this. Look at this. What's going on here? You've got this birthright, which is so incredibly important, far beyond even what they knew. So we know this, and we can look back upon this and see that the birthright included the line of Christ. We understand all this entails what is going on here. And so Jacob is wanting to get the birthright. The birthright in that day, even if there was not the promise, the birthright was the greater portion, most of the time a double portion of the father's inheritance. So he's trying to get the father's, and Esau is older than him. Jacob is the younger one. Remember, the older will serve the younger. That was the prophecy. That's what was told whenever they were born to their mother. And so look how this is playing out. He says, sell me your birthright now. And Esau says, notice this is so good. So good. I can picture myself right now as Esau so easily. He says, I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? And Jacob said, swear to me now. And he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave him his little stew, and he ate and he drank and he rose and he went his way, and Esau despised his birthright. Now, I want to take you through these steps because this is, we can't miss this. Now, again, we know the situation. We know what's set up. We know what Jacob's doing. We know that Esau is coming in, and he's a bit exaggerating in his own thoughts of himself. What is going on? Okay, first he says, I'm famished. Okay, maybe that's not exaggeration. He's very, very hungry. Okay, I believe that. But then whenever he says, sell me your birthright, he sees the situation. The trickster, that's who he is. The trickster sees the situation and says, give me your birthright. And Esau says this, I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? Notice the rationale that's going on in his head. Think about that. Just think about how he had to come to that conclusion. And he's rationalizing what he knows he's going to do, his choice. And in his mind, he wasn't about to die. He wasn't, he was not going to drop over dead. He could have waited. He could have made himself something, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of ways he could have satisfied himself, or he could have just gone on a couple-day fast. They did that many times this day, but he's been out in the field for a long time. He's starving. You know how it is whenever you're hungry, you want to eat anything. You know how it is whenever you're ready to sin. You rationalize it in whatever way you can. You think to yourself, I have to have this. There's no way I can't have this. If I don't have this, I will die. That's the rationalization that goes on in our mind. I did that many times. I mean, I can relate to this very much whenever it comes to the drugs. It's like, it doesn't matter. I mean, my life is over. I have to keep on taking these pills. I have to keep on. If I don't take them, I will die. That's the thoughts that went on for a long, long time with the pain pills. But it doesn't have to be that drastic of a rationalization. We just think in our minds at the point of the sin, whether it is that we are getting ready to commit adultery or some type of sexual sin that we're driven towards. Because just like food, we have a sexual drive. We have a hunger for food. We have a hunger for sex. That can be the same type of thing to where we rationalize whatever choice we're getting ready to make. Maybe you're getting ready to commit adultery and you think, well, who cares? I'm getting ready to get a divorce anyway. That's what goes on. Whatever situation you're in, you will trade everything for it. And if you're going to make a business deal and cheat on something, you say to yourself, well, I'm going to go bankrupt if I don't anyway. There's rationalization is our first step moving towards sin. And we are really, really good at rationalizing. So here's what Esau does. I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? Not only does he exaggerate his own situation, but now he doesn't see rightly. It's like blurred. What use is a birthright to you? Are you kidding? Of course you need a birthright. So it's what is worthless becomes incredibly worthwhile, and what is worthwhile becomes incredibly worthless. That's what happens. The exchange happens. But I love this because the Bible keeps it whenever he says he's talking about red stuff. That's all he's talking about. Again, he doesn't even know what it is. It is presented as the most worthless thing he could have traded for. It's just stuff and it's just red. I don't care. I'll do anything to get this absolutely worthless stuff, whatever it is. Again, and that's what we do. We trade our integrity for red stuff, for stuff that just doesn't matter. That's going to ruin us. but we're exaggerating it in our lives. We are rationalizing it, and it's so easy to make that trade. You've made it, I've made it. It's a horrible trade. It really is. I mean, people, we got, like I was talking about sexual sin earlier. Whenever you're talking about lust and you're talking about all the opportunities that you have now, so much more than whenever I was a kid, all these opportunities that you have to be able to trade in your sexual integrity and say, who cares? I'll probably never get married and have sex, so I'm going to do this. My wife doesn't have sex enough, so I'm going to do this. That kind of thing. It's rationalizing. Sorry for being descriptive about this particular area, but it's a big one, and I think it relates very much because of how worthless what it is that we trade it for. It's just red stuff, and we trade. We make the trade. Let's make a deal. Okay, I'll trade my $1,000,000 for what's ever behind that box. Oh, there's probably nothing behind the box. I don't care. I'll trade it for the box. That's the idea. It's totally worthless. That's what God wants us to see. He wants us to see we're trading for red stuff, for a box of nothing. So what happens? Esau said, I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? Jacob says, swear to me. So he swore to him, and he sold to him his birthright. So the transaction is done. Boom, right? Now, how do you feel? How do you feel after you've done this? You gave into your passions. You gave into that drive that we have. You gave into your sin nature. You gave into inherited sin, that infection that we have that's just pushing us for red stuff all the time. We love red stuff. Okay, we gave in. Now, how do you feel after you gave in? I mean, you think of all the times that you've given in and traded for red stuff too. It does not feel good. I mean, the moment you trade for it, inside you fall apart. It's over. Now notice here. It says, so Jacob gave Esau the bread and lentil stew. Okay, now we get more of a description what it was. All he knew was that it was red stuff. How does he like it? How did it go? I mean, how long did it last? Let's see. So Jacob gave Esau the bread. I want you to see this. I'm going to put this back up here because I think it's so good. Okay, so get to this point here, and it says, the very top, it says, then Jacob gave Esau the bread and lentil stew, and Esau ate, drank, rose, and went his way. Look how quick that was. I mean, it was just over. He didn't kick back, have a good meal, and have some laughs while he's doing it. He didn't have fellowship it doesn't talk about how the red stuff came and nourished his body, and now he didn't need. This is just trying to draw our attention to how worthless this red stuff was, how it disappeared. It had no lasting value. We're talking about a birthright that has the value of eternity. You've got the line of Christ. You've got the salvation that is coming to the world within your birthright. That's the big picture. That's what he's trading for. Now, I know he doesn't know all that, but he does know he's trading for his father's inheritance and his father's name in a big way. But it's so much more. And that's the idea too for us. We trade for it. We grab our red stuff and we give up whatever it is we're giving up in our integrity. But we don't even know how much that is giving up, how much bigger it is than what we even know. He gave it all up and it was over. Ate, drank, rose, went his way. Ate, drank, rose, went his way. So fast. It's over. Done. Now you're just sitting there and you're thinking about it, right? You've just done it. You've just made this trade. You've given up your integrity. You've given up your sexual integrity. You're giving up your financial integrity. You've given up whatever it is that you've given up in that one quick trade that maybe you even rationalized and you said is worthwhile. It's going to make me some good money, or I'm going to marry this girl eventually. Whatever it is, Okay, because we will rationalize our way to anything. Remember, I'm about to die if I don't take this. That's how we feel. So it's over, and he's sitting there thinking about it. And what does it do? I think that this is very important for our understanding of how sin not only affects us in the moment, not only affects us in the future, but changes our attitude. I mean, like rewires us spiritually. Because look at what he does. It says, "Thus Esau despised his birthright." So this great thing of God, this thing that God had given to the birthright for eternity from God, Esau despised it. Whenever we give into this so much, we begin to despise the things of God. We begin to despise those things that are good because we're rationalizing it even afterwards. We know it was worthless, but we don't like that it was worthless. Therefore, in our minds, we somehow figure out a way to make it worthless. And that woman would have left me anyway, and I'm much better off over here. There's no way I would have had to file bankruptcy, and so it's the good things that the integrity that we could have held on to, we begin to despise. It is out of reach. He despised his birthright. We despise ourselves. There's a passage in the Old Testament. No, I'm in the Old Testament. There's a passage in Samuel where David's son it's a great illustration of this as well. David's son is in love with his sister, his half sister, and all he can't help but lust after her all the time. And he has to have her. It's just like this. He's in his mind, he has to have her. And then as the story goes, he quickly goes in and takes her, rapes her, and then afterwards it says he hates her. He hates her. Your attitude just changes. I think there's this realization that opens up, and you know what you've done, and you can either fall apart in repentance at that moment, or you can learn to hate what you gave up and rationalize and say, I don't care. I hate that person. You know, this is the way we work. We love red stuff. We love worthless things. That's the message that we have to get out of this. It's worthless. I mean, I think it's one of the, I mean, no, it's not theological. I'd love to talk to you about the bigger picture of all of the covenants and what all that meant. But here we are, we just zero in the Old Testament on one of these stories, and we're not the Bible's zeroing in. This is one of the main stories we get from them. Why does God want us to know this? Because he wants us to understand human nature, that we are suckers for red stuff, and how stupid it is. So I hope next time you're in this situation, next time you're in one of these situations where red stuff is right in front of you and you begin to feel famished, you have to have it. You rationalize in your mind, you're going to die if you don't have it. I want you to think, this is this red stuff? Because I bet a lot of times it is. We will do stupid things trading. We will make deals that are no good. I've made so many of those deals. So, so you say, Michael, why are you up here talking about it? Well, for one thing, because I have made them a lot, and I've come to accept that I've made them rather than rationalize them. But if you have made them, that's one thing you have to do. Stop rationalizing it. Maybe there's nothing you can do to change it, but stop rationalizing it, trying to keep yourself justified for doing it. That's what we'll do for the rest of our lives. And therefore, we will hate the things of God. The only thing that you can do at the point after you've done it is fall apart in repentance, turn to God, and God will forgive you. Of course, he will. That's what Christ is about. But this is not just about getting forgiveness, because you may already be a Christian. This is about restoring your right thinking. the right direction, the right path, to get on the right path, and to quit following in this line of destruction from before to during to afterwards that red stuff does. What is your red stuff? I don't know what your red stuff is. We've all got it. Well, and usually we've got a particular type of red stuff, worthless thing that we're driven towards. And sometimes one person's red stuff is not another person's. And one person judges this person over here because they can't believe they have that kind of red stuff. Let me tell you something. You've got your own red stuff. Don't judge anybody. And I'll tell you what, you've given into your red stuff. I know you have, because we all have. That's part of being in the human nature. It's the first thing we did whenever we took that apple. We gave into our red stuff and traded our relationship with God. Rationalized it afterwards too, right? The woman you gave me, she's the one who gave it to me. Okay, well, that was a Theology Unplugged sermon. I hope you enjoyed that, and it was somewhat meaningful to you. And I do pray I don't judge you about your red stuff. I'm right there with you. I know how hard it is whenever the red stuff is in front of you, but I pray with you that we all are able to overcome our red stuff. Okay, please make sure you subscribe. That's one thing I want you to do. Wherever you're at, subscribe. Come to YouTube, Credo House at YouTube, and you'll be able to find this. If you subscribe, you'll get the live broadcast every time I go live. It will give you a message and tell you I'm live. But you can always click on the live tab and see all the past live ones. Make sure also, if you like what I'm doing, if you enjoy what I'm doing, please go and become a member at Patreon. Once you get to Patreon, you just do that code right there, or go to patreon.com/C Michael Patton, patreon.com/C Michael Patton, or use your phone here and get this code. But there's all kinds of stuff, different levels that you can become a member at. Believe me, it is worth it. And I would very much appreciate it. And I appreciate so much all those who are my Patreon members right now. You guys are wonderful. You guys are the reasons why we're able to do this. So check out what's going on there. So until next time.